Welcome to Take Two with Freddy. Real talk about second chances, real life, and the power of rewriting your story. I'm Freddy Freundlich, entrepreneur, mentor, and storyteller, and here's the deal. If I didn't walk it, I don't talk it. Each week, we'll spend about 20 minutes laughing, reflecting, and hopefully walking away a little more inspired than when we came in. So, what's on my mind today? Well, I guess it all starts with my friend Brian. A little over a year ago, Brian passed away. Pretty suddenly. He wasn't old, and it was a genuine shock to everyone who knew him. And that was a lot of people. Brian had friends from every walk of life. Young, old, business people, artists, professionals, regular guys. He just loved people, genuinely loved people. About 2.5 weeks ago, there was a memorial gathering marking a year since his passing. My wife and I went, and although I thought I knew Brian pretty well, that evening left me in awe. I think that's really the right word, awe. I always knew what Brian meant to me, but that night, listening to people from completely different stages of his life talk about what he meant to them, I realized something deeper. Brian didn't just live a life, he left a message. Brian used to say that life is like an orange. You have to squeeze it all the way to the last drop. And that, my friends, was Brian. Every day for him was a new day. For him, every day was an exciting day. And for him, every day was about making other people feel good. Not in some fake performative way, but just because that's who Brian was. And as a result, he was a very happy person. For me, Brian has become the ultimate example, the poster child of legacy. We talk a lot about legacy, what we leave behind, how we'll be remembered. But Brian didn't talk about legacy. He really lived it. A few days after that memorial, my wife and I went on a cruise, almost 2 weeks, through parts of the Adriatic and Mediterranean. I have to tell you guys, it was fantastic. If you're a cruiser, I highly recommend it. But while I was on this trip, I kept thinking about Brian. Now, guys, we really don't know what happens after this life. In all honesty, I don't think that's our concern. Our concern is the here and now. Because none of us know what will be tomorrow. And I realized something. Thank God I'm living my life in a way that would make Brian smile. Not perfectly, but intentionally. I don't know if I've ever shared this with you folks, but I live right next to the sea. My balcony overlooks the Mediterranean Ocean. Every morning, I wake up and feel blessed just looking at that view. But it wasn't always like this. About 4 years ago, my wife and I were living a very nice life. Nice house, nice neighborhood, everything was good. No complaints at all. Around that time, my wife Leslie was marking the anniversary of her mother's passing. Her mom had died many years earlier and much too young. And it made Leslie reflect on her mom and on something which I think is pretty human. I think most of us fall into this, that we find ourselves saying things like, when we retire, we'll do X. When the kids are older, we'll finally start to do Z. When we have a little more money, we'll buy this, etc., etc. In other words, we tend to live in the future. And Leslie said something very profound, something that really changed everything. She said, my mother probably thought the same way. And she never got that chance. She never got that chance to do everything because, as we all know, we have no idea when it's our time. And our time came a lot quicker than anybody had planned. So then Leslie said to me, it's always been my dream to live by the sea. Why do I have to wait? Why not now? We talked about it, and within weeks, not years, weeks, we had found a place that we fell in love with, and we moved. And it's about 4 years now, and we've been very, very happy here. And I want to reiterate, guys, not because our old life was bad. It wasn't. It was really, really good. But because this is this chapter. And that's what we're living now, this chapter. Could I have lived my whole life without living by the sea? Of course. Would my life have been bad? Probably not. But that's not the point. The point is this: our job here in this life, at least as I see it, is exactly what Brian had showed us: to leave the world better because we were in it, because we were part of it. That's the question I believe will be asked one day. Did your presence improve the quality of this world? And I believe something else really deeply. When we are genuinely happy, we naturally bring love, more love, and kindness into the world. Happiness spreads. Our move didn't just change our lives. We met people we never would have met. We formed connections that never would have existed. That's legacy in motion. Now, folks, when I talk about happiness, I want to be very clear. I'm not talking about fake happiness. I'm talking about how you feel, not what you think. If I asked you right now, what would make you happy? Many people would say more money. Okay, and then if I were to ask how much, I'd get all sorts of figures: 1 million, 10 million, 1 billion. But the number doesn't matter because it's really not the money they're after. It's the feeling that they believe the money will give them. And here's what I've learned from my experience: when you make more money, it means you're usually going to spend more money. Bigger house means bigger expenses, larger taxes, and of course, bigger stress. Unless your sense of stability grows along with it, the stress doesn't disappear. It just changes shape. I've been blessed financially over my life. That doesn't mean that I haven't had many, many ups and downs. But things always worked out for me. It sounds great, but it's not so great because it means my life wasn't stress free. I myself remember working on a very big deal once. There was a lot of money on the line. A big deposit had already been paid. And then everything started falling apart. If anything could go wrong, it was going wrong. And I was stressed out of my mind. And even though logically I knew that things almost always work out for me, I was still a mess. And that stress wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous for my health, for my family, for my friends, for my peace of mind. And that's when I realized something important. I wasn't chasing money. I was chasing stability. And I think that's a big key, especially with young people. For so much of my life, I was chasing money or stuff or things, but I was really never chasing that. All I really wanted was to be stable and to be happy. Now, I do believe that some stress is part of life. If you've never been hungry, you really can't appreciate good food. If you've never lost, you can't appreciate winning. Contrast matters. That's why today, when I wake up and start my day, I start it with gratitude, real gratitude. And I have something to measure it against. Just the other day, we had a major storm here. The power went out for about an hour and a half. And by the way, this is the kind of storm that they have a name for, and unfortunately, people did die from it. So it was a major storm. But what happened with us, the power went out for about an hour and a half. And people in the building were panicking, WhatsApp messages flying everywhere. And I'm sitting in my very comfortable chair in my beautiful living room thinking, thank God. And I'm not thanking God for the blackout, but for the fact that I have a life where this is my biggest problem, a blackout. Okay. No electricity for an hour and a half. It just got me to thinking how incredibly blessed I am. And the fact is, whatever you focus on, you get more of. Focus on blessings, you get more blessings. Focus on problems, you get more problems. There are people who will argue with me. They'll say there's no science in that, there's no logic in that, and perhaps they're right. But I've lived on this earth for now 65 years, and I've seen it prove itself over and over and over again. And I'm not the only one. So if you are listening to anything from this podcast, again, I will say, focus on blessings, you get more blessing. Focus on problems, you get more problems. Now, I started this and I mentioned Brian and his orange. And the truth is, we all have an orange. Some of us are saving it for later. Some of us are afraid to squeeze too hard. And some of us forget that it can dry out. Brian, though, he didn't wait. He squeezed life to the last drop. And even though he passed quicker than anybody would have wanted, because he squeezed life to the last drop, his legacy didn't end when he passed. It continues to live on in the people he touched, like myself. I am so grateful to Brian for the legacy he passed on to me. And I am not the only one. And many people who never got to meet Brian will also be touched by his legacy, whether they know it or not. So, my friends, my question for you today is simple. What have you been postponing? What are you waiting for? And what would it look like just for today to squeeze the orange? Because legacy isn't what people say about you when you're gone. It's about how people feel about you when you're here. Once again, thank you for joining me on this episode of Take Two with Freddy. If this episode made you think, smile, or pause, please share it with someone else. And please don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Until next time, I am Freddy Freundlich, and remember, if I didn't walk it, I don't talk it.